for coming this afternoon. We have several kind of big things that I want to talk about, and I know you all are kind of anxious to hear what we're doing about several of these things. And then I do want to mention that Kathy Ulibarri, who is the executive director of NMICC and Chess, is also here to help with explaining some of the information that we have and to correct me if I misspeak or something, which is always a possibility. And then Amy Pell is going to walk us through some payroll changes because I don't think any of the rest of us can explain them very well. So that's kind of the order of operations here. But the first thing I'd like to talk about just briefly are the COVID restrictions in our COVID situation. So we did agree that our mask mandate would stay in place until the end of the semester. That includes through graduation. So our commencement will be fully in person. There's no limit on the number of people that can attend or anything like that. We're still kind of working on the handshake piece of it. But that will be a fully masked event. But the plan is, and I've been visiting with the COVID committee every couple of weeks about this, that we will lift the mask mandate at the end of the semester. That is, of course, as long as case counts stay low like they are right now, positivity rate stays low, and all of those good things. And of course, if for any reason those things change during the course of the summer or whenever, then we will certainly rework our regulations and everything. But the feedback that I've been getting recently is that people feel like it's time to take the mask mandate away. I think our students feel like it's time to take the mask mandate away. Of course, everyone is welcome to keep to keep wearing a mask if you want to. I suspect that a lot of people will keep wearing masks around here. And certainly you might want to make that decision depending upon where you are on campus, if you're in any kind of a more crowded space or anything like that. So the other piece of that is that we are going to change our remote working requirements. So up to this point, a lot of people have been working on campus 2 days a week. I think I might have said 2 to 3. That ended up being more like 2, but now it's going to be 3 starting in the summer. So I'm going to use student services as an example because I really appreciate what they have done and what they're going to do. And so they have extended their hours virtually so that students can take advantage of online student services later in the evening. But people will be working remotely to be able to provide those services. And so that will allow for a more flexible schedule. So I think that seems workable. We all have to remember that we're all doing different things and our jobs are not the same. So our schedule is not going to look the same, but I do want it to be fair. So that's how so work with your supervisor. But that's what, we need to bring more people back to campus. We certainly are not trying to get some kind of gigantic crowd here, but we do need to have more of a presence so that our students feel more welcome. This also means that we're going to be having more on-campus classes. So faculty will be expected to teach 1 class on campus every semester starting now. So again, everybody's schedule is different. Some people have been teaching many classes on campus since the beginning of the pandemic. For those of you who have taught on campus so far, I really appreciate you doing that. It does provide choices for our students. We don't really know if they're going to prefer mostly online, face-to-face, whatever, but we need to give them more opportunity to take face-to-face classes if that is indeed what they do choose. Our enrollment is not good. All the community colleges in the state have seen a decline, but I would say that ours is one of the steepest. And so I think we really need to look at what our students' preferences are going to be and to provide those. So again, this is a student-driven type decision. We'll have time for questions at the end, so I'm going to kind of, move on from that. But I would say again, whoever, talk to whoever, is helping with your schedule or whatever to, to figure out what your individual schedules will be. So we're going to spend the rest of our time really talking about chess and some of the initiatives that we have going on through that collaborative, and then what sorts of changes that is going to prompt on campus. I think everybody should have known that by joining chess, Santa Fe Community College was agreeing up front to making a lot of needed changes and really positive changes in the way that we conduct a lot of our business. One of the things that I think a lot of people are asking right now is why we're even doing this. It sounds like a really cool project, like a really great thing when we're talking about it in theory and just from a philosophical basis. But now people are having to do a lot of work, and people are having to make a lot of, we're making a lot of changes in how we do business, and that's starting to become uncomfortable in some instances. So the whole idea about aligning our colleges is so that we can improve upon the services that we provide to our students by creating efficiencies in a lot of our business processes and even in the actual services that we provide to students. So right now, we all have our individual lists, but there are a lot of things, and every college has this. There are a lot of legacy systems that we have, ways of doing things, ways of processing things that are old and that are out of date and that cause a lot of frustration to all of us. And so what chess is forcing us to do is to collaborate with the other institutions that are in this collaborative on a much higher level than we ever have. One thing that we've had to discuss really recently and kind of remind ourselves about is the governance structure of chess. Because, people have asked me, well, what if everybody decides to go to C&M or go to Northern or go to San Juan or something like that instead of going to Santa Fe Community College? Why are we joining this? What is it going to do for us? It is for our students and for our college to become more efficient and to be able to survive a lot of the craziness that's going on in higher ed right now. Chess is governed by the presidents of the institutions that are part of chess. It's not governed by the state of New Mexico. It's not governed by the higher education department. They have almost nothing to do with all this, although we do like to ask them for money every year. But they're not part of the governance structure. So all the decisions that are being made have come from the presidents of the colleges and then us, I would say, empowering the staff that work in the areas of things like payroll, HR, procurement, to be able to make decisions to figure out how we can align our processes to be a whole lot more efficient. So one of the first things, the first big project that we've taken on is payroll. And so what all of the presidents voted and agreed that we want one payroll. So that means that we've still agreed that each college will have a separate payroll office, but we will run one payroll. And so what that means is that all of us have to agree to, and I'm getting real close to stepping into Amy Pell territory, so I'm going to shut up in just a minute. But what that means is that we have to align our payroll calendars and all of the other elements of our payroll so that we can run one instance. So Santa Fe Community College, as I think many of you might know, we currently have 2 payrolls. And everybody gets paid on the same day, but the dates of the payroll are different. This is an extreme, no one knows why we do this, but we are finally going to be able to eliminate this. The staff senate brought this to my attention probably 2 weeks after I'd been here and asked why we had to do this. We had to do it because it was too hard not to do it at that point, but now we're sort of forcing ourselves to undo this kind of a bureaucratic nightmare and to have one payroll. So Amy, if you're here, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about what the changes in payroll are going to look like before I try to say something that I don't really know anything about.
You're doing a great job. You didn't say anything that wasn't inaccurate. So that's perfect. Thank you, Dr. Alley. So it's nice to be with you guys because I could actually decline a workday meeting to join you, and that doesn't happen very often anymore. So before we get into this payroll alignment, I would like to thank the payroll office and budget for working so diligently to get our compensation increases in this month. It's been just madness for them. So be sure to thank them. They've worked really hard, and as of tomorrow, everybody should see their increase and be very happy with what the college has given us. So I'm going to share my screen.
Amy, before you jump in, I want to mention one thing to the group. So this Amy's, this is a meaty topic. I think for me, it is.
Yes.
And you're going to have questions, and what I think I'd like to ask is that instead of, just kind of raising your team's hands and utilizing chat, write your questions down for a minute, because if you might have a question at one moment, Amy may not have just gotten to that yet. So I would propose here, just let it roll out for a minute. We'll have time for questions at the end. That's all I have to say.
I'm going to do my best. Hopefully we get them all addressed. So let me share my screen. Okay, can you all see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not going to do it in presentation form because then it takes over my whole screen and I can't see anything else. But I'll just run it this way. So we are here to discuss this CHESS payroll alignment. And as Dr. Rowley mentioned, the CHESS board established a centralized payroll office, and we are moving forward with shared services and this joint workday tenet. And what that does is it lends itself for us to align many processes in finance, payroll, and human resources. And the colleges are working diligently toward aligning. Centralization of payroll means that for each of the colleges, they have access to a payroll support team that's directed at the CHESS level, but that each college is contributing to. So if Santa Fe needs help from C&M, they have that. If Clovis needs help from Santa Fe, they have that. We'll all have access to each other's finance offices for support when we need them. So this is a really good thing. What this centralized payroll office requires is identical business processes, including payroll schedules and pay dates, as Dr. Rowley mentioned. So what does that mean for us? We have 2 payroll schedules. CHESS requires that we have one payroll schedule across all the colleges. We have our hourly schedule and we have our salary schedule currently. So we will be combining those into one schedule. CHESS also requires a common pay date across all the colleges. Every college gets paid on Friday. Unfortunately, we were not all on the same Friday. So the pay date that was agreed upon by the CHESS colleges happens to be the opposite Friday of our current pay date. So that means that Santa Fe will have to shift its pay date to the opposite Friday.
Excuse me, Amy. Are you supposed to be clicking on each of the slides? Because we only see the first slide.
Oh, really?
Yes, there you go.
Oh, I saw it. Okay.
Thank you.
So are you with me now? Are you seeing the CHESS payroll office slide? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry about that. Basically, Dr. Rowley already presented this stuff, so we can glaze over these first ones. But now we'll get into the meat of it. Okay, so how will this impact our paychecks? That's the big thing, right? So are you seeing the faculty paycheck slide?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go into this kind of based on.
It's not showing.
Somebody's saying no, they can't see it.
This is Yvonne. If you want to drop it in in one of our folders, I can share my screen and you go through it. Do you think it'll be easier? I mean,
I'm just wondering why it's not sharing.
I think actually there is a
Let's
place,
can see it.
there's a place where you choose which screen you want to see.
I can see it fine,
but
so it
yeah,
wasn't a
I
problem.
can see it also.
There we go.
Got
Okay,
it?
Yes, it's showing.
okay. So faculty, how will this impact your paychecks? So on our current pay schedule, faculty will be paid on August 12th. That is the final payment of any faculty that are being paid over 12 months on their contract. That will be the final payment of academic year 21-22 contracts. Then 1 week later on our new payroll schedule, the pay date will be August 19th, and faculty will receive the first payment of their academic year 22-23 contract. And then 2 weeks later on the new pay schedule, which will be pay date September 2nd, they'll receive their second payment on their academic year 22-23 contracts. And then after that, every other week will continue like normal. So can you see the hourly staff paycheck slide?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So this will affect hourly paychecks just slightly. So on our current pay schedule, pay period July 25th through pay period August 7th, which is our normal pay schedule for hourly staff. It's 2 weeks, it's 10 working days. They will be paid on August 12th. Then 1 week later, when we implement our new pay schedule, the pay period will be August 6th through August 12th, which is 1 week, and it's 5 working days approximately. That will be paid on August 19th. Then 2 weeks later, for pay period August 13th through August 26th, it's a regular 2 week schedule, approximately 10 working days. That will be paid on September 2nd, and then it will continue every other Friday, just like normal. So that's the hourly staff paychecks. How will this impact salaried staff paychecks? This is the tricky one. So currently, salaried staff are being compensated through the current date every payday. So for example, tomorrow is a payday. All salaried staff are being compensated through the end of the day tomorrow. So after they receive that paycheck tomorrow and they finish their workday tomorrow, the college does not owe them any other compensation at that point. So on the new CHES aligned payroll schedule, salaried staff will be compensated through the previous Friday on each payday. So this is where it gets tricky, changing this payroll schedule for salaried staff. So this example, under our current schedule for pay period July 30th through August 12th, which is 10 working days, it's 2 weeks. The pay date will be August 12th. It will be a regular paycheck for salaried staff. 1 week later on the new payroll schedule, the pay period is August 6th through August 12th. You can see we have a conflict because we've already been paid through August 12th. So there are 0 working days in that pay period because we have already been paid for that pay period. And that paycheck would have been on August 19th if we had working days to be paid. 2 weeks later on the new payroll schedule, the pay period will be August 13th through August 26th, which is a regular 2 weeks, 10 working days. That paycheck will be on September 2nd, and then we'll continue every other week, just like normal. So how are we going to solve this problem for staff paychecks on August 19th? Staff will be allowed to take 40 hours from their annual leave bank and use it to bridge the gap between the old payroll schedule and the new payroll schedule. Hourly staff who regularly work on weekends, so facilities, security, there's probably some in the technical areas. If they work on a Saturday and Sunday, they will be allowed to use annual leave to bridge the gap that the new payroll schedule creates on August 6th and August 7th, because those 2 days will be compensated on our old payroll schedule, but are included in the new payroll schedule that will be paid on the 19th. We can work with those on an individual basis because there aren't very many of those. This does not mean that staff will actually be on paid leave during that gap in between the old and the new pay schedules. So think of this as like an advance on your annual leave payout that you would receive upon separation from the college. You're basically taking from your annual leave bank, using it to get a paycheck on August 19th. And then your pay will continue like normal on September 2nd. So let me show you. If you were to use your annual leave, salaried staff to bridge this gap, so you would get under our current schedule for pay period July 30th through August 12th, you would be paid for 10 working days on August 12th. Then 1 week later, when the pay period is August 6th through August 12th, even though you've already been compensated, if you choose, you can use 40 hours of annual leave and be paid on August 19th. Then 2 weeks later on the new payroll schedule, the pay period is August 13th through August 26th. You will be working those 2 weeks. You will have 10 working days and you will be paid a full paycheck on September 2nd. So what your annual leave would look like, let's just say I have 200 hours on August 12th in my annual leave bank. I choose to use 40 hours to be paid on August 19th. I'll accrue 1 week of annual leave. So my ending annual leave bank on August 19th will be 163 hours. So staff are going to need to opt in to use annual leave for that August 19th paycheck. We can't do it automatically. This has to be your choice. You have to decide if you want to use 40 hours of annual leave or not. And if you want to use 20, I guess you could choose something lesser, but you have to make that decision. There will be an online form on SFCC Connect created for this purpose so that you can fill that out and submit it, and it will go to payroll so that for their documentation. And you will be required to do this no later than July 15th so that we have a good record of what we need to do when we're implementing this payroll alignment. Now, keep in mind that if you opt out of using annual leave and you are a salaried staff, you will not receive a paycheck on August 19th. So I know I've thrown a lot at you. Let's open it up for questions.
So thank you for that. So at first blush, when I see that week being compensated for, I think to myself, well, where does that go? Like, does that disappear? Where does that go that week?
So you mean the shift between this pay period here, the July 30th through the August 12th?
Mm-hmm.
And then we shift, we basically don't get paid a week. So salaried staff, basically what happens now, like I said, we're paid through tomorrow, right? When we shift to the new schedule, if my last day were to be tomorrow, I would actually be receiving 3 weeks of pay because I would need the 2 prior weeks from our new schedule. And then this current week that I've worked, I would be receiving 3 weeks if tomorrow were my last day. So that's when you catch up. That's when you receive that final week of pay. And this is true for hourly and has been this way for hourly for years. when they terminate, they get paid for the regular paycheck that they would have received normally, and then they get caught up that last week that they've worked. So that's when you receive that week that we're pushing back. That's when you receive it, is when you are no longer with the college.
So let me ask here to our people, is that part of it clear? Does anyone want to kind of explore that component of it? And yeah, I think there's another little piece of this too, as my understanding. So are there any questions?
This is Janelle. I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, my Teams is freezing up all the time, and so this is I guess I'm not understanding this. So what we're saying is that if you don't use money out of your annual leave bank, you basically work a week without getting paid, with the assumption that at the end, when you finally leave the college, you would get paid for that week. Is that what I just heard?
Not exactly. So you are working, if you choose not to leave it, not to use annual leave for that August 19th pay date, and you're working that week, you're actually getting paid for that week on the September 12th paycheck, because the pay period for that September 2nd paycheck is August 13th through August 26th. So we're not taking that 1 week and pushing it off to the very end of your employment with SFCC, but because we're shifting the calendar, you end up with an extra week at the end of your employment that is paid out at that time. It's not like we're taking this 1 week and moving it to the end. The calendar shifts, and we're paying you 1 week. You're working last week and getting paid this Friday. And so if you can see, like, the pay period ends on August 12th here. I don't know if you can see that.
Right.
This pay period that is paid on the September 2nd, starts on August 13th. So you're continuing to work and you're going to get paid on September 2nd. But if you would like to receive a paycheck on August 19th, you have to use your annual leave, because there's no worked time to compensate you for on that paycheck.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I understood. I understood we weren't actually losing anything. It was just if we wanted another paycheck.
Correct. If you would like to be paid on August 19th, you will need to use annual leave hours.
Okay, I think I asked the question in the negative. Sorry about that. So yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Janelle. That was a good question, because it helped me explain it a little different way.
Okay, thank you.
So I also have a question related to that. So if we take the vacation time, we get the pay, but we don't get the time off.
That is correct, because if you want to take the time off, you're actually taking it on this pay period, August 13th through August 26th, which is paid on September 2nd. If you're taking the time off, it's truly annual leave and applies to this pay period.
Thank you.
Okay, okay, let me see here. Sahej.
Quick questions. One is, how are 12-month faculty treated here? I assume that they're treated akin to salary staff, but I'm not sure, and I'd like clarity since folks in our department are 12-month faculty. And my second question is, can we, and I think this is mentioned in the chat as well, can we use sick leave instead of annual leave for that bridge?
Okay, so first question, I did present the impact on 12-month faculty, and there's really not a lot of impact for the faculty. They will be paid on August 12th, which is the final paycheck of their academic year 21-22 contract. And then 1 week later, on August 19th, we will start their 22-23 contracts. So they're,
Okay,
it's just a shift, but they're full paychecks. It's the full contract. So there's not a lot of impact for the faculty.
got it. I thought that was 9-month faculty. Okay, thank you for that clarity.
Yeah. Well, it would be 9-month faculty who have elected to be paid over 12 months as well.
Understood.
Yeah. So second question, as far as using sick leave, no, we cannot use sick leave because sick leave is not a compensated benefit. This is a weird accounting thing. Like, you take sick leave when you're not working, but you don't get your sick leave paid out once you leave the college. You do get your annual leave paid out when you leave the college. So this is the benefit that you're accruing, that you will be compensated for at some point. So sick leave and annual leave are accounted for very differently. So we will not be able to use sick leave for this purpose.
Thank you.
Laura Smith.
Thanks. I put this in chat, but we also know that another consequence of this alignment with the rest of the schools is that we're changing over to a quote unquote hard cap for our leave accrual that will now be capped at 240 hours, and we will no longer accrue time after that. What is the timing of that implementation with regard to this switchover? I'm just thinking if there are staff who are worried about losing time that they have over 240 hours, this might be a good way to get that, to bridge the gap and not lose out on those hours. So I'm just wondering what the timing is of that implementation.
Sure, that's a great point, Laura. Dr. Rowley's going to address the annual leave cap after this discussion, but I can say that we're going to need you to opt into this 40 hours to bridge the gap in July, and the cap will not go into effect until August 31st. So this is a perfect opportunity to bring down your annual leave hours before August 31st.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, well, that was a pretty good segue into our next item on the agenda. Becky.
Thank you. And thank you, Amy. And I think it's pretty obvious why Amy had to cover the payroll piece of that.
Thank you.
And I do
Let me
want
know.
to say now, we will follow this up with a written communication too, because it is very technical and it's complicated. And it makes sense when you're listening to Amy explain it to you, and then you walk away and you think, I don't get it now. So I get that. I've heard this like 4 times and I still kind of do that. So as far as the leave balances go, so one of the other things that as we were working on a common payroll, we had to agree on common leave balances. So Santa Fe Community College was kind of the outlier on this. I believe Clovis still has to there are some people that were going to lose some leave there. But so what our current policy is, let me just start with that. Our current policy is that we cap at 240, but then we're still allowed to accumulate vacation through August 31st. So after, on August 31st, payroll goes in and sweeps any excess balances over 240. Now, the last couple of years, we've let people extend that because people were having a hard time spending down their vacation and everything. But, we said the last time that, that this year, the August 31st deadline is the date. So what's going to happen this year? What would happen this year, even if we weren't doing all of this alignment work, is that any of us who have vacation over 240 are going to lose all of that time after over 240 on August the 31st. So, I think Laura brings up a really good point. If you're in that situation, then your goal would probably be to try to take as much as that vacation time as you possibly can between now and the 31st so that you can kind of run it down. Now you can use 40 of it. If you're a salaried staff, you can use 40 of it to even out your paychecks as we go through and change our payroll schedules. So, one of the things that I, right now, the way that we do our payroll and the way that we handle vacation balances, we use a really manual process that is very difficult to account for and something that our new system will not account for. So what we're going to propose is that, and this will, there'll have to be a policy change to line all this up, is that right now that the maximum for vacation for everybody will end at 240. You can accrue up to 240, but then, in the future, as you get up close to 240, you're probably going to want to take time off so that, you don't lose time, because otherwise you will. And this encourages people and incentivizes people really to take vacation frequently, or take a day or two off along the way. Don't go months and months and months without taking time off. That's kind of how you get in the situation where you have time that's accrued over the 240. Since we are going to have some people that are not able to spend that money, to spend that vacation down or use it otherwise, if you have a really high balance, we are going to pay out what you have left over at 25% of what that balance would be. So instead of just sweeping it away into nothing, we'll reimburse you for 25% of it, and then it will end at that point at the end of August, and then everybody will just set at 240 since then. That will keep us in line with what everybody else is doing in the community college sector in the state, and it's still it's a lot of leave. I think that it's indicative of the amount of leave we have and how hard it is sometimes for people to take that much leave if we do have a lot of balances over 240. I'm in that category too. And I can tell you, I'm planning on taking mine between now and then, because I just feel like, we need to take the time. And that it's good for us. It's good for everybody to do that. So that's what the situation is going to be with the leave policy. That'll be capped at 240. Everybody who has leave over 240 will be paid out at a quarter of the leave balance that they have. It's based on, the hours that you've accrued and your hourly rate of pay. And then we'll go forward and just have 240 at that point. And again, I've heard a lot, people concerned that they're going to lose their leave, but what's going to happen is you're going to lose your leave on August 31st anyway. And this way, you'll either, you can spend it down, or you'll get reimbursed for 25% of it. So, these are the big changes that Chess is really, the Chess presidents and all the implementation teams in Chess are really kind of they're agreeing on right now, and we're working to standardize what we're doing. There will be more coming along. One of the next things that we're going to tackle is procurement. Everybody has varying limits on, when you have to go through the procurement process and everything. It's going to be a big deal to have some standardization. Maybe not as much impact on us, but certainly there will be on a lot of other people. But again, it's all to keep this. It's all to keep everybody at a level field so that we can work together at a higher level. We can spend less time focusing on how we need to be handling two payrolls and more time on how we're going to serve students at a higher level. Before we get into more questions, because I make sure we leave enough time for all the questions you all have. I don't know, Kathy, if you want to add anything to the conversation before we go to questions. She's worked with every school that's been going through this same process, and everybody has a little different issue to grapple with, and it affects everybody a little bit differently, but everybody's having to do something, and change is hard. I don't know any other way to put it. And I don't mean that sarcastically. I mean it very, very intentionally. think you're muted, Kathy.
Thank you so much, President Rowley, and thank you all for allowing me to join you today. You're right. I'm just in awe of the payroll implementation team and the compensation team and all the various teams that have been hashing through these issues. And it's interesting. Most of the colleges, there typically is a majority of the colleges that are aligned with one or two colleges that are outliers, and they're all on different issues. So every institution involved in this is really going through some of the same growing pains that Santa Fe Community College will go through in making this adjustment. But in the end, what this will do is it allows our colleges to move forward with a system that is aligned in the support of each other, so that we are spending fewer resources on managing administrative processes and freeing more resources to be available for those activities at the college that are directly facing students. And so in the end, that is how we are really putting front and center the support of students is the goal of the project, with the streamlining and simplification of administrative processes as the means to get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. And I do want to thank Kathy for all her work on this too, because she sort of has helped to keep us all in line and from losing our minds at different times when this seemed like it was a little bit more than we could possibly handle. Let's go ahead and Todd, if you want to handle the questions, and then you can answer them if you want to, and then I'll wrap it up after we get through the questions.
Sure. SJ.
Hi, Becky. And I think maybe this question may also be for Kathy. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So I'm asking this to understand how CHESS settled on the 25% compensation, right, for the hours that people would lose. Could you just talk a little bit about that?
Sure, and actually that's not a CHESS thing, that's a Santa Fe Community College thing, because no one else has that rolling vacation like we do. And so we're, what we do is kind of it's definitely an outlier. So I've checked around, and there are other colleges who have done this in the past and then kind of eliminated this system. Our new HR directors had some experience with this at previous institutions, and 25% seems to be the number that is typically used in one of these situations, because, really what happens is that, at the end of August, all that excess is going away anyway. And so you will completely lose it under our current system. And under what we're proposing, we would be paying you for 25% of that, instead of just letting it all roll back to nothing, because that's what we do every single year at this point. Now, some people who haven't been here that long may not have felt the effect of that, because we changed the deadlines on some of that during COVID to try to add more flexibility. But in any event, what we're going to do is we're going to reset it. We reset it 240 every year anyway. And what we'll do is just, this time when we reset, it'll be the last time that we reset.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I'll just add, I do know of one other institution that moved away from this approach several years ago, but CNM is an example of a college that made this move. When CNM did do a leave payout at year end in an old system, they paid out at a 25% rate as well. And part of the rationale there was, as President Rowley mentioned earlier, really this desire to make sure people are taking some time to refresh and recharge, and not just using it as a bonus program, if you will, in trying to trudge through, but really to be respectful of your own well-being, and thinking about taking some leave to refresh.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Sahej.
Thanks. So I have to be honest that this change really causes me it's frustrating to me. Our program runs basically year round with the exception of spring break and holidays. We have students on campus 6 days a week, and taking leave is incredibly challenging for our team. And the change is effectively a change in compensation, because if we are now above 240, that's going to be paid out at a quarter of the value that it was earned at, and we're not going to earn anything more. So I've told our folks that, we're not going to trip this, that everybody's going to take their time out, but it's going to cause actually more strain and more stress on us to accommodate this than it is refreshing and recharging. And it feels to me like this is a decision that occurred entirely outside of the shared governance process, with no real discussion with some of the key stakeholders on campus. So it doesn't feel good to me. I understand the rationale behind it, but it causes significant frustration for me and our team. And since we're having this conversation, I felt like that had to be said. And we're going to do our best to manage it internally to our department. That's kind of what we do in EMS. But it is frustrating, and it does leave a sour taste in our mouths, because from where I sit, it's a material change in the compensation that we agreed to when we signed up to work here, and there hasn't been the opportunity to have input into it. So I respectfully had to express my frustration. Thanks.
So Hedge, I appreciate that. And I can tell you that, this has not gone through the shared governance process yet. It will. I'm letting you know beforehand that this is, it will make its way through that. So, there certainly will be more time for you to make that frustration clear. But I do want to, the 12-month faculty are kind of an interesting, I understand what you're saying. It is that you can't almost take time off during the semester, or it's very difficult. So what's going to happen is that you lose vacation every single year anyway. And so I've looked, and most of the 12-month people do lose vacation once you've been here for a while. And if you hit 240, you're going to lose, it's going to happen. And so this way, you're not really, it's not going to affect the leave that you're going to be able to take. And there are some other solutions to that scheduling that I think that we can, work on and discuss, years down the road. But the problem is that, we can't, that recycling that leave like that and letting it roll over like that has really been, it's an old way of handling leave, and something that I have been talking about trying to change since I got here. Before I ever knew or, understood that it would be kind of a focal point of what we need to do to make our policies align in chess. But it is a change, and I do see that. I mean, a lot of us are going to be impacted by that. But I think that the main issue is that we want to try to encourage people to use leave along the way. And so if you know that you're going to, to lose your leave, take a day off here and there until you have those breaks where you can actually take some leave. Breaks from students, I mean.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Lenny.
Hi there. So I was a little surprised to hear today for the first time that faculty will be teaching one class in person starting the fall. And I'm a little confused as to the timing, because we've been, department chairs and faculty and deans have been working on the schedule for months and have been asking for guidance as to class capacity and, online, asynchronous, all that kind of stuff. And students are signing up for classes as we speak. And there are plenty of faculty that are not going to, currently not scheduled to teach in person because that was not part of the guidance that we received. So can you tell us what we're going to do going forward and, how we're going to deal with students that might have signed up for a class that now is going to be in person or,
Well, there are a lot of classes out there that are listed as on campus that don't have any faculty names by them still. And so, the guidance all along is that we needed to have, about half of our classes on campus. We just never did it. We're never going to get to the point where our campus even looks like something remotely like what we used to know if we don't have faculty teaching on campus. And so if everybody else is being asked to be on campus for, basically 2/3 of their time, faculty teaching on campus, one class, and that can be a hybrid class. I mean, that would count as a one of your classes. And so that may give more flexibility. But a lot of, and I've looked at the fall enrollment, yes, there are students in classes, but not very many. We're just starting. And so to make changes now wouldn't be as big a deal, but I don't really anticipate that we would need to do that. I do think that deans have been, giving the message that we do need to have more on-ground classes. And I know there are areas that have almost all their classes on campus too. And so, it will vary from department to department, and it needs to be about student preference. And I think that there also the, the CBA states what faculty's office hours, that faculty need to do at least 4 office hours on campus. And so we're going to go back to doing those things and try to return to, a tiny semblance of normalcy. It's pretty tiny though.
Charlie.
Thanks, Todd. And Dr. Rowley, I can make this quick. I think a lot of us have the same question. At the end of August, if we trim our leave to 240, and then on our very next paycheck, we make 6 hours of leave, bringing it to 246. Do we lose that leave? And is 240 the absolute max we can carry?
Yes, you would leave that. You would lose that, Charlie. So what I would say is that we're going to all have to be more proactive about balancing, or watching our leave and taking it more quickly as, you get to that 240 point. My advice right now, and this is my own advice to myself right now too, is to be planning on taking a significant amount of leave this summer. And I'm not just saying that just to, get rid of your vacation. I think people need it. And I know it's hard to schedule it. You can't shut your whole department down and everything, but it's a lot easier to do than you think sometimes. I've done it and then found that the world still kept moving without me, and that, after a day or two, people, I don't even think, notice that you were gone, and you can come back to that. So, but yeah, you'll have to really watch, because we do accumulate, I think, basically like 3 hours a week. And so you'll have to really stay on top of it.
Yeah, that's, I think I have the same concerns as Sahej, another 12-month faculty. As soon as August rolls around, we're teaching for 16 straight weeks, sometimes 5 days a week, usually 5 days a week. So in the past, being able to add that on top and still trim it back at August 31st the next year worked for us. But now we won't have that extra assurance to take some leave in between spring and summer. It's really hard to manage.
It's going to be a switch for all of us. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And we have about a few minutes left. I'm going to go to Emily, and then we may have that may be our last question. Emily.
You're muted, Emily. It doesn't look like you're muted. Let's try it again.
Now Emily is muted. So maybe she could try unmuting.
Yeah, it doesn't look like she's muted, but
It's not working. Can you put it in the chat, Emily?
Okay. Well, I want to be super respectful of our schedules here. Laura, do you have a quick one?
It might be quick. This is an old concern, but one that I feel has maybe been forgotten by administration, and it certainly has not been forgotten by staff. We know that the Evergreen study was dismissed as wanting, and at the time, administration indicated that internal research would take the place of that data. And indeed, monies were set aside during that fiscal year to address what were known inequities within our compensation structure. And I'm just wondering what the plan is to hopefully refocus on that goal, because I know that money was swept into reserves at the beginning of the pandemic. So I'm wondering if there is a plan from administration to address that concern that has been a concern for many years.
that's a good question, Emily. So, or Laura, sorry. So first of all, yes, we are looking at other salary studies, but as far as the money that was set aside, that was, not quite sure how to say this diplomatically, but that was not conveyed to all of you as what it was. So there was money set aside, but there was never enough money to address staff inequities going forward. So if we had $1 million or $800,000 set aside, and we thought that that was going to be the fix for salaries, we only had the money to do that, to give everybody a bonus one time, and then we never had the money to be able to pay for that. So I think that that was presented in a very unclear way, and it wasn't what people thought it was. But what we can do, and what we are doing, is looking at discrete areas within our budget, various groups of employees, and matching those with the market rate and with the rate with comparable community colleges in our state and in the Western state region, and then making adjustments there. But we never had the kind of money that people think we did to make that kind of an adjustment on an ongoing basis, because if we were to make an adjustment of $800,000 to $1 million in our budget, we'd be able to do that for about 3 years, and then we couldn't do it anymore. And I don't think that that was conveyed clearly by earlier HR teams. And so I do want to, I feel like that needs to be said.
I see, and that makes sense. I do remember that it was a one-time mill levy thing. So
Yeah.
Is there a procedure for staff members to gain access to that that process? And that's all.
Well, I don't know what we'll certainly, there really isn't a process to gain access to as of yet, but there are some salary studies out there that we refer to that I think I could give to Staff Senate.
Okay, thanks. What I'm seeing is that there's going to be some time, we got to get moving on this. Obviously, it's why you brought it up, but also there are some good questions and discussions that we can continue to have at a future forum or in other spaces. And so, Becky, are you okay with, I want to adhere to our schedule the best we can, or do you have anything you want to, or you just want to take us home?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for being here today and for being really frank with your questions, because I realize that this is a hard thing to do, but it's something that, we have to do. We're committed to doing. There really is going to be a light on the other side of the tunnel. But I also want to thank, as Amy did, our payroll teams for the work that they're doing right now, and the work that they've already done really on chess alignment and on our own internal payroll and getting our raises processed so quickly. It sounds trite for me to say that this is all going to be better, but it is going to be better. And for some of the concerns that you raised, there are some other solutions that we can look at down the road. But you know, those are conversations that are going to take a lot more discussion from the parties involved. But again, thank you all for being here today. Thanks for your questions. If you have further questions and you want to just shoot me an email, please feel free to do that. And as I said, there will be a written communication that comes out too, so that you can especially go back and mull all the details of the payroll conversation, because it really is complicated. Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great, yes, thank you to our interpreter.
Thank you to our interpreter.
Enjoy the day before it gets really windy again. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.